The first stage in doing a rebuild of a machine for me is making sure that the thing actually works to begin with, so that when I get to the end I know I've got something to work with. So what I've done, I've taken the covers off. We've got a little bit of lubrication with just penetrating oil, just to kind of free everything up. So we've threaded it up, put some light canvas in it, and I'm just driving it by hand. Like I said, literally you just want to see if it will sew. A little bit of a tension issue. Maybe run it again and just have another try. Yep. Yeah, so there we go, we've got a working machine. So now I'm happy to start stripping it down. One of the first things to do, print up the manual. That's the machine stripped down as far as I want to go. Most of the stuff is off it. The needle bar guide is not coming off. I can't get these pins out, so but they don't need to come out, so I'm just going to leave that. So these are all the parts. So what I'm going to do now is go and clean up the main body and chassis and have a look at the paint and see how easy that's going to come off. So now that it's stripped, stripped as far as I'm going, I'm just using white spirits or mineral spirits to clean the old oil and grease off and just really clean the whole thing up. The white spirits also works as a penetrating oil, so it does actually get into all of the bearing faces and bushings and gives them a bit of a clean out. And the white spirits will evaporate off, although it might leave a bit of a white residue, but that can just come off with a cloth. This is quite an unusual machine. I've never seen some of the mechanisms on this one. But it is, I wouldn't say simple, but it's not too difficult to work out what's going on. So there's a lot of paint on here. There's a good few layers. It's had some black paint before it was painted white, but it's coming down. So taking it back down, so just to the metal, and then I'll finish that off with a different sander. So that is the first phase of the strip down and paint removal. Okay, phase 2 of the preparation is I've got a 60 grit paper on a sander and that's what I'm using to take the marks from the grinder away. Let's get this first smooth surface. There she is, all naked. That's after the wheel sander and then some 60 grit and then some 600 grit, and then it's cleaned with white spirits or mineral spirits, and then I'll give it a final look over tomorrow and a little bit of hand sanding to get the last little bits of paint away that I've missed, and then we'll get some paint on it. That's all the parts now sanded, polished, degreased and ready for masking and then painting. So the paint I'm using is just a standard car paint. This is a filler primer, so it has a little bit more body, a little bit more thickness to it. I'm using that as a basis, and it just helps to fill up the little tiny kind of holes and little tiny marks that are left on it. So what I normally do is put a few coats of this on, and then I put a coat of flat primer on before I put the top coat on. But I don't have any flat primer, so we'll see how we get on with this one. This is my cleaning and polishing area. So I have a pot here which has the dirty parts in, and that has some denatured alcohol or methylated spirits in it. That will soften the oil and the grease and any paint, and then it can be taken off. Then I have a selection of tools and bits and pieces that I use for scraping and cleaning to get any of the dirt off. I've then got a polishing board, so this has got a fine, a very fine and an even more fine paper on it. So this is just a flat board, and the paper is attached, so I can sand and then go finer and then go finer, and then finally the parts, then once they're finished, they then get stored in a little pot, ready to reassemble. So that is how I'm cleaning the fixings and the internal parts. So it's now got three coats of primer, and it's getting a flattening sand. So this is a very fine, what I would call a flattening paper. It's about as fine as you can get, and just taking the heads off some of the high points on the paint. And because it's a filler primer, it's got a bit more body. So yeah, so we're just flattening the surface. So there'll then be another primer coat, and then it should be ready for first top coats. Normally I'd put a flat primer coat on as well, but I've run out. So I'm just going to use another filler coat. Sorry, it's got 4 coats on, not 3. Okay, so that's the sanding done. Now it just gets a wipe down with a very soft cotton cloth. And that's just to remove any dust from the surface. So just wipe in and blow in. And if I think I've put any dirty or oily marks on it, I'll give it a wipe down with some white spirits, because that shouldn't affect the paint at this point. Yeah, I think I will give this a wipe down. I think I'll put some grubby finger marks on it. And now for the first layer of top coat. So this is just an acrylic car paint. That's the colour. Let's see how it does. So if you've never sprayed anything before, you don't want to start your stroke on the actual work. You're going to start your stroke off the work and then go across it, and that's how you'll get you'll avoid getting, you can't always avoid getting runs or lumps, but that's the best way to avoid it. And go light coats, and more of them, rather than trying to go heavy. Okay, that's the first layer on. I'm going to leave it like that and let it cool. Let it sit. I also use a heater